my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new. My name is Jenny, and I'm here today to do the Christmas Carol book tag that was created by Lauren Wade from Lauren Wade Reads. And I was super excited when I watched her video on this because The Christmas Carol is one of my favorite books of all time, and so to do a tag based on it is really fun. So without further ado, we will get started. The first prompt is The Ghost of Christmas Past, a book that was a childhood favorite. And I couldn't really think of a Christmas themed book that I wanted to talk about for that was a longer book, but I definitely wanted to talk about The Night Before Christmas because this was a book that we read every single year, and this is actually my copy that I got as a little girl. I got it in Christmas 1977, so I was 3 months old, from my grandmother. And it's a really sweet little, it's obviously the poem by Clement Seymour, and it's all kind of, it's very 1970s claymation styles with the puppets and everything snuggled in their beds. So this book is just a gem, and I now have it for my kids and we read it together at Christmas. Prompt number 2 is The Ghost of Christmas Present. Name a recent book that I think will become one of my all-time favorites. I wanted to pick a book from this year, and so I went all the way back to January when I read The Lie by Helen Dunmore. I've talked a lot about this book on my channel this year. I just adored that book, and I think about it quite often, and it just stayed with me and affected me very deeply. And so that is the book that I definitely will read again in the future. I probably will buy a copy to keep for myself because I read the book from a copy from the library. The third prompt is A Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, a book coming out in the year that you're excited about, in the new year. And for that one, I had to really look because I don't pay that much attention, I think I've said before. So I had a look on a few different publishers' websites, and I found on Simon & Schuster Canada a book called Follow Me to Ground by Sue Rainsford, and she is from Ireland. And I'm sure this book may already be out in the UK. But I loved the description. It says, a haunted, surreal debut novel about an otherworldly young woman, her father, and her lover that culminates in a shocking moment of betrayal, one that upends our understanding of power, predation, and agency. So that sounded really intriguing to me, and it comes out in Canada in January 2020. So I will definitely keep an eye out on that. And they did categorize it in literary and magical realism. So I think there's a little bit of folklore element to it as well. So yeah, it sounded really intriguing to me. 4 is Bah Humbug, a book that everyone else loves, but you just can't stand. I picked for this one Behold the Dreamers by Imbolo and Imbue. I read this last year, I believe, and there was so much hype around it. It was one of Oprah's book club selections, and I did feel like most people on BookTube that I saw review it really liked it. I didn't hate it, but it didn't hit the marks for me, just in terms of really digging into those characters. I felt like the characterization was slightly glossed over, and the overall kind of plot of the book just didn't have as much impact as I would have preferred. So it just didn't hold the emotional resonance that I feel like a lot of other people experienced with it for me. Number 5 is Bob Cratchit, an old dependable book that you always recommend. I don't recommend a lot of books to people. It's kind of a nerve-wracking thing. But for this one, I picked Late Nights on Air by Elizabeth Hay. And because it's the most recent book that I've recommended. I did see it at a secondhand bookstore when I was shopping with my mother when she was visiting, and I did recommend that she read it. There were parts of that book that I found I didn't like. There were certain little things that I found annoying, but overall, it just brought alive the northern part of Canada. It's set in the Northwest Territories for me in a way that no other book ever had, because I don't think I've ever read another book that's set in that area. The book really had a lot of atmosphere, and it really had a lot of good commentary and interesting ideas. So overall, I think if you're looking for a Canadian book that is representative of a different part of Canada that you maybe want to, you know, explore, the north and northern culture, and you know, kind of settlers, colonial culture going into the north and how that resonates, yeah, I would definitely check out Late Nights on Air. Number 6 is Tiny Tim, an underhyped book that you think deserves more love. For this one, I chose a book by Amy McKay. I was actually going to talk about The Birth House by Amy McKay, which was her debut novel. But I decided to pick Half Spent Was the Night because this is a lovely little novella that she published last Christmas and that I read last Christmas. And I just think Amy McKay is an underhyped writer in general. I don't ever hear people talking about her on BookTube, and her work is really interesting. She writes very entertaining work that is, you know, just full of women's empowerment and interesting plot lines, and she does a lot of historical fiction. And then she also just released a memoir about her family, because her family carries a very rare genetic cancer mark, and so she's been studied for that for her whole life. So she just wrote a memoir about that. But this little book is actually, it's a standalone, but it's also can be a companion to her book The Witches of New York, which she published I think 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and it's just this lovely little Christmas story. So I would definitely recommend checking out Amy McKay if you haven't checked her out yet. And I would definitely, this is a lovely little Christmas gift as well, if you wanted to get it for someone who loves you know, fiction with a little bit of magic thrown in there, a little bit of whimsy thrown in there. Today, why it's Christmas Day. What's a book that always gets you in the mood for Christmas? I picked While the Bear Sleeps by Kaitlyn Matthews. This is Winter Tales and Traditions. I just got this book out from the library years ago, and it is a compendium of Christmas stories. And so what it does is it takes all the holidays and puts them into story format. And it's really, really wonderful to read. I think even if you're an adult, it's just a really wonderful way to learn about this season. So you have Who Was St. Nicholas? You also have stories that come from different parts of the world that are around winter time and focus on different aspects of winter time. You also have the story of Hanukkah in here. You have Kwanzaa stories, and you have Christmas customs talking about this. So the whole premise of the story is that this young girl goes into the bear den and sleeps with the bear during the winter, and the bear takes her on a journey and teaches her about all the different traditions that happen in wintertime all around the world. So it's a really lovely story. It is The Muppet Christmas Carol, my favorite film adaptation of a book. I want to talk about Black Beauty by Anna Sewell for this. I love the film Black Beauty, and I love the book. I read it this year with my son Elliot, and the film is just so beautiful, and it's just a lovely, lovely story about a wonderful horse, and I would recommend that one. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for dropping by, and I will see you all again tomorrow with another Vlogmas video.